Shiva may be the most recognizable and unique aspect of Jewish mourning, especially to people who aren't Jewish. So, Anita, can you tell us a bit about why do Jews sit Shiva, and what is the value of Shiva?
Now, this is non-COVID Shiva, right? We were talking.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe we want to do that again because I thought we were.
I'm so sorry.
We're doing COVID Shiva afterwards.
We'll do COVID Shiva after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Not at all. No, okay.
Okay.
So Shiva may be the most recognizable aspect of Jewish mourning, specifically even to people who are not Jewish. It's something that's so uniquely special about Jewish mourning. Anita, can you share with us a little bit about why Jews sit Shiva, and what is the value of the Shiva experience?
Why Jews sit Shiva is because Jews have sat Shiva for a long time. That's kind of the, and there are rabbinic reasons as well. But I can certainly speak to why it's important and what it means to people, or what it can mean to people. So let me start by saying, if you don't have a circle of friends, if you are truly isolated, sitting Shiva for 7 days is truly entering hell, because you're alone. You're alone with the grief, and the whole point of Shiva actually is to make sure you're not alone with your grief, especially in that first week when you are so raw, when you have lost somebody that you love and your world will never be the same. So Shiva is about being taken care of. It's about family and friends circling around, feeding you, making sure that that you are eating, in fact, and that you are sleeping, and that you're taking care of yourself, giving you the opportunity to talk about the person, encouraging you to remember out loud. As painful as that is, it's incredibly cathartic. It's a 7-day, traditionally it's 7 days long, although it winds up being more like 5 because it starts the day of a funeral, and if it's a Shabbat, you skip that day and it's over. But 7 is one of those magical numbers and important numbers in all religious traditions. The world was created in 7 days. And this is a 7-day period of intense mourning where you do wear your ribbon, you cover mirrors. In the past, that was to avoid goblins and ghosts coming through the mirrors. But today, I really think it's a signal, it's a sign that life is not the same anymore, and vanity is vanity. Shiva is one of the wisest psycho-spiritual inventions of Jews and Judaism. My rabbi many years ago, Lawrence Kushner, said, for every day that you sit Shiva, you save a year of therapy. That is really an opportunity to sit with and to talk about the things you wish you'd said, as well as good times and good memories. So I think that's the emotional importance of Shiva. In America, people tend not to liberal Jews tend not to sit for 7 days, take 3 days, or actually sit Shiva for 2 days in one city and then go home to where you live and sit Shiva for another day or 2 or 3. But making that time, carving the time out and sitting Shiva, sitting is because people used to sit low to the ground, but it means you're not working, you're not walking, you're not taking care, you're not doing the dishes, you are sitting still with your feelings. So it's very powerful. And having been on panels with people from other faith traditions, I think they've said sort of what you did. It's the most powerful and most helpful. And I wish we had it in our tradition as well. It is genius. And it's the beginning of a pathway through grief. The funeral, actually, the death, the funeral. But in terms of mourning, this is the beginning of mourning. You leave the person in their grave and you go home and you start mourning. And there's the first week, there's the first month, there's month to month, there's a year, and then it's year after year. So it's a pathway from darkness to light. This is one of the darkest places, Shiva, and yet it is the place from which you can build the rest of your life.
So beautifully said.
I'll just share one personal thing that Anita made me think of. My father actually passed away almost 5 years ago, and because he died right before Yom Kippur, his funeral was the morning of Kol Nidre, the evening Yom Kippur service. And it just so happens, the way the Jewish holidays fall, that some of them cut off Shiva entirely. So literally his Shiva was for 2 hours from the funeral that morning. And then we had 2 hours of Shiva. Then, because my rabbi actually went and led services that night, which was probably not the healthiest thing, although I insisted that I could do it. So my Shiva for him, our family Shiva, was 2 hours. And I think it stayed with me for probably months or years, that there were lots of things I didn't process that I would have at Shiva. But I always say, I have always said to congregants and people's funerals who I've officiated, how important Shiva is, and not having Shiva or having it for such a short time only affirmed for me how important it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anita, is it always required that you have a prayer service at a Shiva?
I think it's traditional. I would kick that one over to the rabbi. So it usually is. It's usually either the morning service or the evening service, and you have a minyan and they come. And in a way, I think it's to have a service means the minyan comes to you. In traditional times, one would pray morning and evening, and if you're sitting Shiva, you don't leave the house. So people come and bring the minyan to you. So it's a way of taking care of the mourner. But I know lots of liberal Jews for whom the service is probably the least important part of Shiva, and while there may be a short one, that is not the most important part for a lot of people. Although the comfort of having people singing and holding you up and saying Kaddish with you can become very important, even if you didn't think it was going to be at the beginning.
Interesting. Rabbi Robin, do you want to say anything else?
And I just want to say, Anita addresses beautifully in her book, as she just did, the importance of the service and why it can be so powerful. I do know some people, certainly I've seen in my own experience, who've chosen not to have services, who still find Shiva incredibly meaningful. I would recommend similarly that they at least do something, even if it's just to say the mourner's Kaddish, if that's meaningful for them, or something else that they do together as a group. But yes, more and more, I think liberal Jews and their loved ones may or may not find the service itself as meaningful and part of what they want to do, but they're just being together in the space can be very powerful.
So the experience, Rabbi Robin, of non-Jewish family members and friends at a Shiva, what can we do to make people for whom they're not familiar with the practice more comfortable and meaningful to them? There's something in particular that we can do to help people understand what it means to be in the house of mourning and to sit Shiva?
I think the most thing is, like anything else from a religion, that sometimes even if it is your own and you don't know, but certainly if it's not your own, is that fear of doing something wrong. And especially when things are related to death, that can be extra kind of scary that you'll make a mistake. So whether it's just even send an email in advance, very briefly saying, here's what Shiva is, it's to comfort the loved ones and remember the deceased. Traditionally, you're actually supposed to go up to the mourner and let them begin the conversation. You're not supposed to go up and share everything with them, but let them kind of set the tone. Nothing happens if you do that differently, but just to say in an email or even put like a sign on your door, here's the basic traditions of Shiva that you're following, essentially, can make them more comfortable. You know, if your windows, your mirrors are covered, you might want to just explain why. You know, there's a tradition of covering your mirrors, and I would not necessarily go back to the history here, but just say so that we don't focus on vanity, we can focus on what's really important. But, you know, really just make it clear, the mourners, or someone could help them, it doesn't have to be the mourners themselves, that it's about being there for the mourner. And yes, there are rules and regulations traditionally, but the fact that you're there is what's most important. And I would say we all make mistakes, and that's just fine.
Showing up is all of it. It's everything. Exactly. Showing up is it. I also want to put in a plug for writing notes to people. To send condolence cards and letters. There's nothing, it just touches you so much when, even if it's an acquaintance who heard about your loss, it's the least you can do, and it's the most you can do sometimes. And it's very important. It doesn't take a lot to comfort mourners. In fact, it's just a touch, it's just an email, it's just showing up at the Shiva. and just nodding across the room, and you will be remembered for having been there, because it means a lot. I don't think, I actually think people who aren't Jewish at Shivas behave better in most cases than people who are Jewish, who tend to start talking about other things. If they know each other, they may go into the kitchen to do it, they may not. But I think there's the hesitancy that a lot of people who aren't Jewish may be there for the first time, and the respect they show also is front and center. So I've always found, and I think if you're a Jewish person at a Shiva and you're sitting next to somebody who seems lost, it's nice if you just help. So it should be a community thing to invite, so that maybe in your congregation you say, but when you're teaching your death and mourning program, to say, and if someone comes into the room who looks lost, just take them under your wing and help them. So it's just about being menschlich.